know, very strange time, so I thought what we'd do today is have a go at showing you how to make a lovely table design that you can use with plant materials from your garden. So to start with, I'm just going to take a block of floral foam and making it rest this way up. I just need to take a kebab stick and mark 1 thumb thickness at either end, like so. So I've just put 2 simple little marks just there. I'm then going to take a really long knife, and what I need to do is to cut straight through the floral foam like so, and it's going to make a gorgeous noise that some of you might not like, but I absolutely think it's fantastic. And I'm just going to cut straight through. So really what I've done is cut 1/3 off. So I'm going to put that to one side for the moment. So I'm working with this piece of floral foam, and I found a plate. Well, actually it's my nan's, so it's very old. And why I'm using this particular plate is because it truly fits nicely to be able to draw around to create a semicircle. So I take the plate, place it on top of the floral foam, and with my kebab stick I'm just going to draw around like so, so that I create that outline shape. So once I've created that semicircular shape, what I need to do is with a steak knife in a vertical sawing motion, I need to then cut round. And it's very important to keep this knife absolutely vertical so that we don't get a funny sort of diagonal top to this semicircular shape. So having cut it, I'm then just going to carefully remove the residue, and then I've got a bin down here, and I'm keeping my eyes well away from this whilst I'm rubbing the edges to get rid of any of the excess dust, so that I've created my semicircular shape. I place it so it sits upright, and I take my lovely big knife again and I cut straight through. Just ease it down, and then we have now got 2 semicircles. We then take the base, as it were, that we're going to work with, and take another piece of floral foam, and this is 1/3, and all I'm going to do is to cut off really around about a generous inch all the way down. So I'm just going to cut like so, so that I get rid of that. And then I'm just going to rub the dust off again, make sure your eyes are well away from it because of the dust. And then I'm going to put it flat like so and cut it in half, and then stack it, and I'm just going to cut off a little corner so that I have a corner nibbled off, so that when I put them together we then have a little sort of corner edged removed either side. So I then take my base, and I'm going to sit my little pieces of floral foam so that they sit really in the middle. So they're going to sit like so in the centre of the base of the floral foam, and then I'm going to take the 2 sides and I'm going to place them so that they go either side of my central fillet. But what I need to do is to make sure that there is a lip that really is evident either side. Now if I feel that the lip is a little bit too small, then all I need to do is to take my fillets, put them together, and then just trim just a little bit of the excess off. So I'm just going to trim this off like so, just so that I have a slightly smaller piece that goes into the middle, put it back onto the base again, and then just take my 2 sides and place them like so, so that they sit nicely together. And now I feel that when I've centralised the fillets, I definitely have got 2 nice little lips, as it were, either side. So having got that far, I'm then going to take a kebab stick, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to secure my semicircles to the actual base. So again, make sure that they're sitting nicely so that there is a lip either side, and I'm going to insert the kebab stick in, but then lift it up slightly so that when I cut it, then I push it back in, it's nice and flush. So then I repeat on the other side, I insert it all the way down, just lift it up, do a little cut as flush as possible, and then push it down. And then before I go any further, I want to do the other side. So again, just hold this nicely against the base, insert, and what you're trying to do is to stake really the semicircles and push it down, insert in. So you're trying to stake those semicircles to the actual base. So having got as far as that, what I need to do is just to actually add, excuse me, a few more of the pieces of down, the kebab stick in, and just really to make sure that it is absolutely nice and secure. So I'm just working with this like so. And we're going to work with this particular design, so the majority of it is being arranged whilst it's not being soaked at all. So having got as far as that, what I need to do now is to actually then take out the fillets. So I'm just going to take those out and put them to one side. Now I'm going to work with some green lacquered wires, because then they won't rust. And you can either use 56s or 71s. What I'm going to do is to work with the scissors, which have the serrated edge right near the base of the blades, and I'm going to cut the actual wire so it measures round about sort of 2 to 2.5 inches long. Once I've got as far as that, I then hold the wires in the middle, and then with my thumb and finger I then pull the wires towards each other to create really a hairpin shape. So obviously I need to make a lot of those. Now you will need to have laurel. It can be spotted laurel if you're very lucky, otherwise you can just use the common laurel. And all I've done is pick 18 of these leaves to round about 7 inches or 18 centimetres long. So what I'm going to do is to work with the largest one to start with. And as we see, the laurel stem itself is really quite short, and so it's much easier to arrange this leaf in dry floral foam than it is to work with the wet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the leaf so that it's in the centre, push it right in, have this so that it's centralised to a semicircle, fold the top so it goes over the actual top edge, and then with a wire, a hairpin wire, either side of the midrib vein, diagonally downwards, I'm then pinning that first placement of laurel. Now if you feel that the stems of the laurel are so short, what you can do is to take another wire and again, either side of the midrib vein at the base, just pin it to stop it from pinging out. So what I need to do now is to take another laurel leaf, and I'm going to insert this one so that it is right up against the semicircle. It's going off at a slight diagonal angle, but what I'm trying to do is to make sure that the edge of this leaf buffs up to the midrib vein of the one before. Then I'm going to fold this over, and then I'm going to pin it. And it doesn't matter how far down you actually pin it, you do just need to make sure that it's nice and secure. Then you actually take the leaf and you go to the opposite side, again insert that at a slight diagonal angle, again so that the edge of the leaf is buffing up to the midrib vein, mould it so it goes over the top of the actual semicircle, and pin again either side of the midrib vein at a diagonal angle. And obviously it's much easier if it's facing you, but I thought if I showed you the first 3 placements, then for speed I'm just going to turn this round and then just complete one of the sides. So each time what you're doing is making sure that you insert the stem as deeply into the floral foam. In fact, sometimes you'll find that part of the leaf base itself will actually go into the foam, and then all you're doing is then just pinning inside the actual semicircular shape to help to hold it into position. And it doesn't really matter how many pins you use, as long as you pin either side of the midrib vein. And why I say to do that is because the midrib vein is the strongest part of the leaf, and that means that when you're pushing your wires into the leaf, either side of it, you will know when to stop pushing it in, because you can feel that it hits the actual midrib vein. What I've tried to do is to make sure that the entire semicircle is covered from the front, but more importantly, all the top surface of that semicircle is absolutely covered with the laurel leaf, because that might be part of the design that you'll be able to see. We then need to repeat the process. So you're taking one of the longest ones that you can possibly find that you've picked, insert that, and then just mould it round, and then just give it a pin. Obviously, if you've got the spotted laurel, that would actually look rather attractive, because then you just have a lovely pattern too. And so all I'm going to do is just wrap these round, and I do find it better once you've put the middle one in, if you then work either side. Now I can see that that leaf is too short, so let's just find another one, because obviously the longer leaves are going to be at the tallest point, which is at the centre of the semicircle, and the slightly smaller ones that you may have can then go towards the outside edge. And if you feel that there is a leaf that might actually then just ping out, then you just, as I say, just place the a wire down low so that you secure it into position. And because the laurel is an evergreen, you'll find that it can withstand being taken out of water, inserted, manipulated and pinned, and then the next pattern done before you then actually water this. And it's much, much easier to do. And I find this is a very effective way of creating a nice coffee table design, because you can look into it, or a nice table arrangement, and you can either make it so that it's suitable for a round table or for an oblong table. So each time all I'm doing is just pinning the materials like so. Now I've got a little piece of floral foam showing here, and I would rather use another laurel leaf just to try to disguise that area. So again, I'm going to look for a smallish or slightly shorter, even though I've tried to measure them all to be 7 inches. Again, insert it in. Try to get the midrib vein visible, because of that extra little bit of interest with the light green versus the dark green, and then just pin. So we've got as far as that. So at the moment we've got 2 semicircles which have been based really with the laurel leaf. For pattern, I'm actually going to work with the cordline leaf. Now this particular cordline is called Red Star, and I thought I would use this because I've used oval shaped leaves here, and now I'm just going to work with a piece of line material, nice long placement. Now I can feel that where I've cut the stem here, the leaf here, it's very, very woody, but I do need to make sure that I've got sufficient to be able to come up and over and round. So I'm just going to cut this off, and I'm going to use what I call a blunt cut, straight across. This is a hardy leaf, it will be able to take up sufficient water. And what I'm wanting to do to start with is to insert this leaf so that it goes off at a diagonal angle. So it's going away from the actual lip itself, but I've inserted the stem as close as I possibly can to the semicircular shape, and it's in deep enough that I know that it won't come out. What I need to do is to put my 2 fingers so that they then rest above the top of the cordyline, and then just get that the tip of the cordyline to go down inside the actual structure itself, and then just pin again either side of its midrib vein to hold it into position. Excuse me, it's the oasis dust. So then I'm going to cut the end of the stem like so, so it's a blunt cut. Insert it in at a diagonal angle, put your 2 fingers so they rest on top, and then you can then just wrap that inside and then hold it into position and then just cut. And what I'm trying to do is just to sort of get the two longer ones ready so that there is a puffed affair. So then you take the next corduroy and then you just cut and then insert, and just as we've got the midrib vein just sort of gradually splaying out to create a diagonal pattern, we're going to do exactly the same with the cordyline, so that we measure it with our fingers and then just pin, and then take the next cordyline leaf and cut the base off where we feel it is too woody, and then we can then just insert it nicely into the floral foam, measure our two fingers, put the tip so that it goes inside like so, and then just pin. And again, it doesn't matter how many pins you actually work with. All you're trying to do is to create that lovely sort of patterned shape, and then you just repeat the process so that you're gradually creating a fun pattern that then extends and gives that lovely little bit of enclosed space, which I always think is so important. So you can now see really the reason why I said it's so very important to make sure that the laurel does actually cover the top of the semicircle as you're constructing this particular design. And eventually you'll find that you won't even need to use your 2-finger measurement to sit on top of the floral foam, and you'll be able to judge it with your eye. Do make sure that you do cut off that very sort of hard woody part at the bottom, and you'll notice that I'm gradually getting this so that it does all appear to radiate from the centre base of each of the semicircular shapes. So let's just carry on just working away like so. Let's just check that we are then having a relatively interesting pattern, and what I really am trying to do is to try to get the spacings to be as even apart as I possibly can. So I just need to cut that little bit of woodiness in. There is a bin down there, by the way. I'm not just throwing it all over the floor. So we're on lockdown now, and we're trying to obviously help save lives and keep ourselves nice and safe at the same time. On Monday, this will be week 4 for us as we've had our lockdown. But can you see what I'm doing? I'm gradually just sort of developing this so that we have an interesting little bit of pattern inside. So our first day of lockdown, I unfortunately dislocated my little toe, and thinking that I couldn't go to hospital, I had to ask my husband Ian to actually put it back in, which wasn't the most pleasant of activities to have, but I just didn't want to go to hospital to get my toe sorted out. So I've got 7 of these leaves just to create this pattern. Excuse me, a couple have fallen on the floor. So I just need to then add the remainder of these cordyline leaves to really echo that semicircular shape. So I'm just pinning those in and then taking another one, again cutting off that hard base. And the hard base would mean that if it was very hard all the way up, you wouldn't be able to then manipulate the leaf as well as you would like. Pin so that as you look in, you won't eventually be able to see this. And I've got my last 2 cordyline leaves, which I'm then just going to add to radiate out on this particular side. A little bit of laurel just pinged out there, so I've just pushed him back in. But it's so much easier to do this dry, so off with the floral foam. So obviously, eventually it will need to be watered. I need to take my last leaf and then just insert that into the foam like so, so that I can wrap it around to create a little bit of contrast, a little bit of, looks a little bit more like an Art Deco design, I always think. So I'm just going to insert those. So I've now placed it so that I've got the cordline red star is now then positioned to create enclosed space and to add that little bit of difference to the design. So now what I need to do is to take my 2 fillets. So we're going to get the 2 fillets and we're going to put them so that the chopped off corners are on the outside edge, and we're going to then just carefully push those down until they sit nicely on top of the base of the floral foam. And by doing that, you'll find that the tips of the cordline leaf are then also held in position by the actual fillets. I then take another kebab stick and I'm just going to cut it down into round about 5 centimetres, 2 centimetre inches, insert diagonally so that they will go not only through the actual fillet of the floral foam, but they will then go into the base as well. So I'm just pushing those in, and that really just helps to hold it into position. So having got as far as that, I then need to have a plate, and I thought it'd be rather nice to have a sort of a nice sort of bamboo style plate that's been painted with PVA glue to help to seal it into position. And I'm going to take a frog and some fix to start with, and you don't always have to use a frog and a fix. It's whether or not you want to make sure that it really doesn't move around. So I'm just going to use the fix, place it on top of underneath the frog, and then just centralise this just to help to hold this into position. So the frog is now attached. Just check it to make sure that it's nice and secure. You normally see that the fix goes through the little holes here, so it's gone all the way through. And then you're going to take your structure and then just centralise that and push it down into the plate just to actually hold it. Now I'm only going to add just a little bit of water here because I don't really want it to sort of spoil any of the drape, etc. But I've got a little jug of water here, and I'm just going to carefully water the fillet area to start with. So if you think about it, the semicircles themselves don't hold any stems, so that they don't need to be watered, and all we're trying to do really is to make sure that eventually the actual lip at the base is then got sufficient water to then water the leaves and obviously the rest of the materials that are into position. Obviously, when I've completed this design, I'll add more water to it to ensure that this lasts as long as possible. So I've now got the basics of this particular design, and I want to really start with the middle part. So I've got 6 ivy leaves here, and I was able to find in the garden a few of the variegated variety, and I'm going to insert one of these leaves so that it will go just in the middle, so that it sits there like so, central. And then I'm going to take 2 more leaves and I'm going to put those together, cut the stems so that they're at the same length, so that they're round about 1.5 to 2 centimetres, about 1 inch long. And again, what I'm going to do is to insert these so that they are inserted towards the top of the lip at a diagonal angle, so that they will then drip down to help to hide the floral foam. And then obviously I do the same on the other side, so the larger leaf goes towards the centre, and that's just inserted in at a diagonal angle. And you may find that the first time you insert it in, it's going to hit one of the laurel leaves or the cordline leaf. 2 leaves together, cut the stems at the same time so that they're round about 1 inch long, around about 1.5 to 2 centimetres, and again insert those so that they're sort of slightly going diagonally away from the central leaf, and they're just helping to disguise that unsightly floral foam. And of course, it doesn't want to go in. So I'm just going to recut the end of the stem because it doesn't like where I'm putting it. And I'm just going to insert this in, and I'm going to take a little wire this time, and just to make sure that he stays into position, I'm then just going to pin him so that he sits nicely up against the floral foam, and then repeat the process on the other side, so that we then have a little placement of 3 either side. So we're going to actually then position those like so. I don't suppose we need to see that anymore. So we've got as far as that. Now obviously we can still see part of the floral foam to either of the sides. So I've just got some ordinary garden compressors, and I thought that I would use this because it has a nice textural contrast against the actual laurel leaf, and I can insert it so that it is then again laying face-wise against the lip of the floral foam to quite quickly help to hide the mechanics. So I'm just going to add just a few more placements just so that we don't see that unsightly floral foam. So each time I'm just inserting this in, and I'm cleaning the stems, defoliating the stem, so that as and when I insert it in, it will then help to hide and hold the stem, then helps to, long stem helps to hold it into position. And then obviously you've got to then repeat the other side. So again, you're just inserting it into the floral foam as closely against the foam as you possibly can, and it's really just to help to disguise it. So I'm just leading these stems into this tiny little bit of lip that is visible, so that we're just adding this. And again, if you feel that the compressors is extending out too far, then just use one of the little hairpin wires to help to hold it into position. So defoliate down to remove any of the compressors that you feel may end up going into the floral foam, and we're just going to insert that in nicely to start to hide the mechanics. So it works like so. I'm then going to take 2 laurel leaves, and I'm going to put the tips so that they're level with each other, and I'm going to cut into these leaves to either side of the midrib vein so that I create a longer stem. So I have 2 that are exactly the same length now, and what I'm going to do is to insert one into the lip of, or the top of the fillet rather, so that it extends down at a diagonal angle, and again it starts to help to hide that unsightly floral foam. And then all I'm going to do then is just use some small placements and then just add just a few little pieces, just so that we edge really at the bottom and hide the majority of the foam before we start to concentrate on the centre of the design. Try and insert the stems at a diagonal angle so that they drip down. So we're just placing these like so, and I think after a couple more pieces then I've got sufficient compressors really, so that I can then think of what I'm going to put in the centre of the 2 semicircular shapes. So just insert those in as we go, and I'm just going to add a little bit just towards there, just to start to soften really and contrast greatly, for textural contrast, the contrast between the actual laurel and the compressors. So that's going to sit there like so. So we've actually got as far as that. So now what I wanted to do is I wanted to find a petite piece of material from the garden that I felt really had different coloration, but also added again a huge amount of textural contrast against the shininess of the laurel leaf. And I've come up with the Cupressus macrocarpa. It's one of my most favourite materials. Now I'm just going to cut the stem like so, because what I need to do is I need to check by putting the tip inside the actual centre. I want this to extend not too much higher than these gorgeous red star cordyline, but I also have to think that I need to have a clean stem. So I've cut it, I then defoliate down, and I just want to see whether I'm right in the height, and I am. So I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to just measure it up against another piece of the Cupressus macrocarpa, defoliate down, and then I know that if these sit either side of where the middle is, then they're going to be even in shape. Then I take the next one, I insert it in, I work out if I can create this sort of semicircular shape. I know that much needs to be seen. I need another inch to be able to insert it into the floral foam. I'm just going to defoliate down, insert it in, check that it's the right length, yes it is, take it out, put it up against another one, cut them so that they are level, defoliate down again and insert. And even though I've been flower arranging for many years, I do find that if you can actually measure your materials by turning the materials upside down and then working out how long they need to be, and then just testing with either one or two depending on the style of the design you're doing, you'll find that it's much easier to create a floral design. So I'm just going to add those in there like so. And I'm hoping that you'll agree that the contrast with the lime green of the Cupressus macrocarpa with the dark green of the laurel and that lovely burgundy red star cordline really does help to add that little bit of interest. And all I've tried to do is to create really a soft flow of Cupressus just flowing through. But I thought that I really needed to have just one more type of foliage, and I wanted to try to find something that again had a different form, and I thought that the hebe would look rather attractive. I find this a particularly elegant piece of material. So there, look at those, aren't they gorgeous? Nice little sprouting stems coming out from the tips, and they're relatively the same size. So I've cut them so that I could get as much length out of them as possible, and I'm going to see whether or not I can get those to flow nicely in between so that we have this lovely contrast just flowing through with our different forms of plant material. And then I'm just going to take a couple more, and they're of the same length, and defoliate down. And I'm really just trying to hide the majority of that floral foam before we then work with our flowers. So again, if I'm working in pairs, then you'll find it's much easier. So I'm just going to add those like so, and we're nearly there with our lovely little bit of contrasting material, which I thought would look rather attractive. And I'm going to lead the eye, as it were, all the way down to the base, so that we have that little bit of interest. And then what would be rather nice is if I could actually then link the base for unity and have just a little bit of the hebe in the base of the design. And I'm trying to be very conservative, because obviously a lot of us don't have huge amounts in our gardens, and it looks like we're in for a long haul here. So I'm wanting to think, well, what can we do to actually then use all the materials that we have available to us in our gardens and in our flower arranging hoards. And I've really explored the quantity of materials that I didn't realise I had, as I've been doing some tidying up in my shed and garage of all the different floral materials that you always think, I can't throw that away, it might be of use. And so I'm thinking, well, it will be of use, because I can make lots and lots of different styles of designs just with the materials that I have available to me. I have no means of getting any materials from the outside world. So everything that I'm going to use during my classes, I'm going to just find in the garden or in the shed or the garage. So I'm just going to work with these. So really, you could just have this design as it is, because I think that the contrast of the different materials that I have with the different forms and the different textures and the different coloration is rather lovely. But I'm lucky at the moment that I do happen to have some laurel in flower, and so I thought that I would actually work with a little bit of the laurel to add that little bit of interest. So I'm just going to add just a few of those into the design, and again I'm just going to actually get them to radiate out, as it were, from what looks like from the central point. So again, if I need to deflower this time rather than defoliate, I'm going to cut the stems again and then just add these. And I thought that these spikes are a very pretty flower that you don't normally use, but they do look very, very attractive. I thought they'd look rather nice in my floral design. So each time I'm holding the tips so that they're level with each other, so that I can then just add these and insert in. And I'm trying to insert the stems for a good inch into the floral foam, so that there's less likelihood of the items just falling out, so that the laurel flower is in there. And then I've just got enough really just to add for unity, because I always think unity is exceedingly important, so that it helps to link the design, so that if you have a top placement, then you try to use again the majority of the materials that you have, so that they then link together, so that it looks as if it's all one design rather than two separate placements. I'm bringing a couple of the stems either side just out just a little bit, just to give a little bit more depth, and again I'm just going to add those like so. So I've added really my laurel, and then I've just got the last of the viburnum tinus here that's still in flower. It was right at the back of the bush in the dark, so I've had to clamber in just to get hold of it. I don't want the leaves. I feel the leaves will actually compete, and the stems are going to be really quite interesting to work with, because they are very, very curved and of different shapes. So I really just want to see what I can do with these, just to have really a little bit of round flower. And I feel that these, because of the slightly larger colour, would actually look better, the size of these, they'd look better to give a little bit of recession, because recession is so, so important to give depth to the design, so that the eye looks in, because you will be tempted to look into this arrangement, and it's quite nice if you can then see a little element of the colour, even if you can't discern the flower. It's nice to have that, so that it just sits and rests in, so that the viburnum tinus, again in pattern formation, but this time I can't cut the stems in pairs, because the stems themselves are so different in shape that I need to take the actual contorted stem into account. So we're just going to add these, and again create a pattern so it flows all the way through. So I do need to put one little one just down below, so that the eye able to sort of flow all the way round. And again, for unity, I need to make sure that I do have a little piece of the viburnum tinus, so that he can then sit nicely at the base of the arrangement. And I'm going to actually have that one so he's coming up just slightly like so, and then just repeat the process on the other side. So I'm going to remove most of these larger leaves, really, because I feel they'll compete with these little small flowers that I have available to me from my garden, and I'm just going to add those in like so. So at the moment I've added the foliage, we've got the outline shape, we've then really disguised the floral foam with the remainder of the cupressus and the ivy, then use the flowers. Now I have a bit of a problem here, because I have no means of getting any flowers, and so I have to say that I'm going to work with these wonderful silk flowers that I found in the garage that obviously were left over from Christmas. So we've got what looks like a hellebore on the top, and oh look, some holly leaf at the bottom. So neat, it will have to do, but obviously those of you who've got more proficient gardens in flowers than myself will be able to use real flowers. So I think I'm going to call these Helleborus, or what, I don't know, Helleborus I think, because of the weirdness of these. Helleborus ficus I think is the name we're going to call these. And I think I'm actually going to take these leaves off because they're just not going to work. So I'm just going to place one of my little leaf flowers in the centre, and in true Blue Peter style, I have a few that I cut earlier off my two little stems of fake flower, and I'm just going to add these into the arrangement because I felt that we needed to have something that had a little bit more dominance to the design to create as our focal flower. I also need to make sure that I do get these so that there is a pattern that is forming with my fake little flowers here. So I'm just going to add these like so, and I keep hitting the stems because obviously we've tried to make sure that they've gone in really, really deeply. And I don't really want to cut these down because I might need to use these again. So I'm just going to add my final one so that he sits there, so they radiate all the way round, and then repeat the pattern so that we have one that just sits there like so. So they're just flowing through quite nicely. So the eye, if it's on a coffee table, can look down onto the design. And then I'm going to take two more of my little fake flowers, and what I need to do now, and I am going to have to cut these down, so I'm just going to cut just a couple of inches off, and what I want to do is to make it so that the eye is led to the base of the design, and so that's really why I've left a space so that I can put my little red flower in, just like a button in one of those lovely cushions that you get where all the pattern leads in towards the centre. And then we've just added this like so. And I'm hoping that you like this particular design. Obviously when I put it in situ, I'll then add some more water. I do know that the fake flowers don't need to have water, but the rest of it actually does. And what I want to do is to show you how you can reuse the entire floral foam structure to create another yet different design, and that will be one of my next videos to actually show you, so that those of you who have limited ability to get your floral foam, you may find you have a few blocks hidden away, then what I can do is we'll work with this one if you want to do this, and then another time, the next video I'll create is using the same structure but working in a different way. And I thought that this might be a nice design that has limited materials, but I think has a lovely contemporary feel to add to make a bit of a change really for doing your design. So I'm hoping that you like this first Gill McGregor how-to during these testing times. So keep safe, keep well, and thank you very much for watching. Thank you.